Any more thunderstorms? Is the sunshine back to stay for a while? And what are the prospects for next week and a certain music festival not far away from here in Somerset? Yes, it's Glastonbury next week, so we'll have a sneak peek at any signs of the forecast for that as well. All of that will be answered in this week's Deep Dive, plus plenty more. Welcome along. Thank you for joining me. My name's Alex Deakin. I'm a Met Office meteorologist. If you've not seen one of these deep dives before, it's where we take a longer, deeper dive, as the name suggests, into everything that's going on in our atmosphere, and there's certainly been plenty of that of late. So don't forget to hit subscribe if you like what you see, and if you do like it, give us a thumbs up, hit the like button as well. That makes a big difference, and then we can keep doing these broadcasts as well. And if you know someone who's a bit of a Met head, a bit of a weather geek, then please share it with them as well, because that's what we really like to hear from, the weather enthusiasts. And we do love to hear from you, do love your comments. Aidan and I always read them, and we are very, very appreciative, particularly of all the lovely comments, but also of the constructive criticism, or indeed any questions you have about weather and climate. Please pop those in the chat as well, and we'll try and answer them in future Met Office deep dives. Okay. As I said, plenty going on. We've seen some big thunderstorms over recent days. Let's take a look at those first of all. This is the satellite sequence from the past few days. Just keep your eyes across England and Wales here during Sunday. Let's zoom in a little bit. Watch that. Wow, did you see that? Almost like an explosion. A huge MCS, mesoscale convective system. And then on Monday, something very, very similar happened. We had two big thunderstorms in similar parts of the world that developed, one on Sunday and one on Monday. Again, we'll run through that again because it's just beautiful. There's Sunday. Let's zoom in a little bit. So let's pause it there. Just as it's getting going there in the London area, you can see, let's rewind it a little bit. Just breaks out just to the south of London. You can see the start of it there, just under the L of London. Play it through. Whoa, really rapid development into a big thunderstorm that then pushed its way northwards. Wait 24 hours, and the same thing almost happened again, a little to the north of London this time, but again, dropping a huge amount of rain in some locations. Large hailstones recorded as well, particularly so on Sunday, and lightning strikes also. Let's take a look at those for Sunday. This is showing lightning strikes during the course of Sunday, and I think we recorded something like 20,000 across the UK during the course of the day, and then again on Monday. So lots of thunderstorms breaking out across the UK during the course of the weekend. It's not playing ball. The lightning strikes are not playing ball, but yeah, you can see there, clutch of them across the London area, zoomed in there into the northwest of England, and also a host of them just up there across parts of northern Scotland. If we zoom in a little bit more, you can see the lightning strikes there. So yes, plenty of lightning strikes, 20,000 recorded in the across the UK during Sunday, and then on Monday it's something like 35,000 lightning strikes across the UK. Across England and Wales, that's where we had the biggest storms on Sunday and Monday, but for today, time of recording, the greatest threat of thunderstorms is across Scotland and Northern Ireland. That's where we've got the weather warning out for. But if we fast forward to the here and now, time of recording, you can see actually much of the UK is dry and clear, and that is likely to continue for the next few days. But what I thought I'd deep dive into a little bit is how wind affects thunderstorms. Perhaps something not really that obvious at first thought, but actually wind plays a big part in the formation of thunderstorms, different types of thunderstorms that you can get. And it's in particular something called wind shear. Now, wind shear is how the wind changes with height. So if you think about it, as you go higher up through the atmosphere, you probably know that the winds, generally speaking, get stronger. You get to the top of the lower part of the atmosphere, you get the jet stream, where the winds can be easily 200 miles an hour. Obviously, you don't get those kind of winds at the surface. So the higher up, generally speaking, the stronger the wind. And if you see that, that's called wind shear in terms of its speed as you go higher up. But there's another type of wind shear in the fact that it can change direction as it goes up. Now, I don't know if you've noticed, but if maybe you're sitting on an idle summer's day watching the fluffy cumulus drift along, higher up in the sky you may be able to see the cirrus, the thin layer higher up, and that's going in a different direction. And that's because the winds don't all go in the same direction. Yes, they generally get faster as you go up through the atmosphere, but they also change direction as well. And so there's two types of wind shear, that one that deals with speed and that one that deals with direction. Let's try and show you that, maybe using the board, if you can find the right. Now, don't worry about the map at the moment, just pretend that this is the surface of the Earth. Let's make that white. So this is the ground, and then as you're going higher up through the atmosphere, so this is going higher up through the atmosphere, the winds, generally speaking, will get faster. So I'm drawing a larger arrow for the stronger winds, the higher up you get through the atmosphere. But, as I mentioned, they're not always going in the same direction. So the winds at lower levels could be travelling in one direction. The winds up here may be going in a different direction, and the winds over here could be going in a completely different direction. You could easily get a 180 shift in the winds at the ground to the winds higher up. So you get that two different types of wind shear. Now, why is that important for a thunderstorm? Well, if you think about it, storms are generally caused, particularly in the summer, I'm talking about summer thunderstorms, by the warm air, heat and humidity building at the surface and rising up through the atmosphere. So you've got some warm air that is rising here up through the atmosphere. It generates a cloud because as it gets up through the atmosphere it cools and condenses and it forms a fluffy cumulus cloud. But as that gets bigger, as the updraft, the winds get a little bit stronger, that can turn into a storm cloud. A cumulonimbus cloud, looking something like that, perhaps. So my GCSE art is really paying off now. So as the winds get stronger, the updrafts get bigger, you get the depth of cloud, you get a thunderstorm, and eventually, if things are right in the top of the atmosphere, then you're going to get rain falling. Initially, you're going to get hail, perhaps also in the top of this, it's going to fall down. So you're going to get rain falling down, but of course that falling down, if this cloud is all in one place, that rain falling down cuts off the supply, cuts off that rising air. So the thunderstorm, or the shower even, just dies. It kills itself almost, if you haven't got any movement. But often, you do have the movement. So the winds, it's not staying in one place because the winds higher up are moving faster. So you actually get the winds going in a different direction. And you get those winds maybe, so the winds, the updrafts are wiggling over like this. And what that means is that then the downdraft or the rain is falling over here. Because the winds higher up are moving in a different direction or moving faster than the winds lower down. So that wind shear plays a big part. And actually what can then happen is this downdraft can spark another lift. And another storm kind of gets formed within the same circulation, but you don't necessarily notice it. So depending on the wind shear, what different types of wind shear you get, if you get that change of speed as you go higher up, then it doesn't cut itself off, and if anything, it spawns another one, and the movement of the storm is dictated to by the strength of the wind and that wind shear. But if you've got both the types of wind shear with that difference in direction the higher up you go, then that can create a spin within the cloud, and that's where you get the huge supercells that can then spawn tornadoes. So it's that crucial element of the spinning, the changing of the wind direction as you go up through the atmosphere that can often spark the bigger storms and the tornadoes within them as well. So that wind shear, that change in wind direction and change in wind speed as you go up through the atmosphere is crucial for the different types of thunderstorms, how long they live and how they move. So a little bit about thunderstorms there. As I said, we're going to see some at the time of recording through Tuesday afternoon across parts of the northwest, and maybe one or two more as we go through the rest of this week. But generally speaking, if we get onto the forecast for this week, what's happening is high pressure is dominating. It's come back. So if you've been watching these for the past few weeks, this is the picture we've got at the moment. Let's zoom out a little bit more. Come on, touchscreen, you can do it. Here we go. So, maybe not that much. A couple of weeks ago, high pressure was here. It's now moved up across Scandinavia, generally speaking, and there's a low pressure out here. I've got the jet stream on here. The jet stream is kind of generating this low pressure. Across the UK, though, the jet stream's nowhere to be seen. It's way up here. We're on the warm side of the jet, which is why it is warm, and it's why it's been so largely dry. Humidity built over the weekend, and that allowed the thunderstorms to break out. But what we've got now, if we put the winds on, if we zoom in at the position of the high, actually we've got that easterly drift back in because the air goes around high pressure like that. So the easterly breeze is picking back up, and that is bringing back slightly less humid air from the continent. So over the weekend we had southerly winds. Now we've got the easterly winds bringing slightly cooler and slightly less humid air. So the risk of thunderstorms is diminishing for the next few days, and actually most places set fair. Wednesday, Thursday and into Friday generally looking fine and sunny until we fast forward. Let's take the jet stream off because that's not really helping. Fast forward to Thursday, and the low pressure just edging a little bit closer, but generally speaking we've still got the easterly flow. It's still dry, it's still fine, it's still sunny. Friday, that low is getting a little bit closer still. By the time we get to Saturday, well, that low is really edging in from the west. So that's the big change with our weather over the next couple of days. The high pressure is edging a little further away. The low pressure is getting a little bit closer, so reintroducing the moisture and reintroducing the risk of showers from the west. But for the next few days, most places just going to be dry and sunny, say bar the thunderstorms breaking out in a few places in the northwest during Tuesday afternoon. But most places looking fine and sunny for the next few days, and so we can clearly see that on the shorter, just ignore those winds for now. I'm trying to show the winds going in different directions, but that doesn't really work. But that's dry and sunny. It's in this area here we've got the Met Office yellow warning in place for the thunderstorms this afternoon. Fast forward to Thursday, again dry and sunny for most places. Early in the morning there might be some mist. And increasingly Thursday and perhaps Friday, just the threat, you can see increasing chance of showers coming in from the west. So that's ballpark the forecast for the next few days. Plenty of sunshine, and it's strong sunshine. This time of year the sun does not get much stronger because we're almost only a week away, so 8 days away from the longest day, from when the sun is at its highest in the sky, and that's when the sun is at its strongest. So this is the UV forecast for the rest of this week, 7s and 8s across the board. So very high UV levels. The sun is really strong. If you're spending any time outside in it, make sure you've got the sunscreen on. Another thing that's been in the news a lot over the past couple of days, pollen. This is the pollen count. This is for Tuesday, this is for today, this is for Friday. Because the weather pattern's not shifting, the pollen levels are not changing. Very high across all of England and Wales, and levels also now rising to moderate or high across most of Scotland and Northern Ireland. That's Tuesday and Friday. Not a lot shifting. And just why is that? The conditions are just perfect for grass pollen. It's the peak grass pollen season this time of year anyway, but we've had this long spell, unusually long spell, where temperatures have been in the sweet spot. You can get too hot, or it can get too hot for pollen production, grass pollen. I think it's about 27, 28 degrees, and actually then pollen levels will start to drop off. So we've been close to that and above that in some locations, but for the past couple of weeks we've been in that kind of sweet spot with temperatures in the low to mid 20s, plenty of sunshine, and of course rainfall washes out the pollen. That will reduce pollen levels as well, and there's been very little of that. So we're now going back into that zone where temperatures are going to be in the, places maybe in the high 20s, but mostly in the low to mid 20s. So it's just really, really good for grass pollen, which is obviously not good news if you've been suffering. There's reports from the NHS about 100,000 people visited the website about hay fever last week alone. So that's the reason why just conditions have been absolutely perfect for grass pollen in that sweet spot of temperatures. No rain to wash it away, and it is the peak season. So yes, sadly levels are expected to stay high. With the onset of some showers coming in from the west towards the weekend, that may start to reduce levels, but for most of this week levels are expected to be high or very high across England and Wales. So yes, high pollen levels in the forecast. One more thing I want to talk about, look back on, he says, tripping over his mic, heat wave. So it actually has now officially been a heat wave for the definition of heatwave. Let's take a look at the definition first of all. Just a reminder, what is the definition of a heatwave? Until about 3 or 4 years ago, we didn't actually have a full definition from the UK Met Office of what a heatwave was. So we came up with these criteria. It has to be 3 days in a row of reaching this threshold temperature. That threshold temperature for a large part of the country, Scotland, Northern Ireland, most of Wales, Northern England, Southwest England, that pale pink colour, 25 degrees Celsius, and that rises down towards home counties and up towards Cambridgeshire, up to 28 degrees Celsius. Different thresholds, different parts of the country, because different parts of the country are more used to seeing those high temperatures, and heatwave needs to be something special, something unusual, not something that happens all the time. So in this zone, that temperature is up to 28 Celsius, because that is the hottest part of the UK. 26, the darker pink, 27 Celsius, that brighter red colour. So if you reach that threshold temperature 3 days in a row, then you can say officially we've had a heat wave. And actually a large part of the country has now reached that threshold, has reached that criteria for a heat wave. Southwest Scotland into northwest England, so temperatures here have been over 25 degrees for 3 days, down across the Midlands and even parts of the southeast, because we got up to 32 Celsius at the weekend, and then 30 again on Sunday and Monday. So large parts of the UK have now officially had a heat wave, and some places will continue to see that, but temperatures will be dipping in some locations as we go through the rest of this week. But heat wave criteria have been met in these locations. Really remarkable actually to think this time last week most of this zone hadn't reached 25 Celsius at all so far through this year. So we've seen quite a big jump, that actually a large chunk of this zone that's now been declared a heat wave didn't reach 25 degrees until this time last week. But now, yes, we can say 3 days over those threshold temperatures, it is officially a heat wave. What's going to happen though to the temperatures in the outlook? Let's take a look, because we saw, let's take a look on the graphs actually. Maximum temperatures over the next few days. Looking at Hull, for example. So in the east, it is turning a little cool. We saw earlier that easterly breeze is coming back. Now, not like that really strong east wind that brought all the cloud last week and the week before that. Much of eastern England was really quite grim and grey and grotty, whereas in the west, it was fine and sunny. Temperatures are dipping off a little bit in the east, so these are the temperatures for Hull before actually then settling down through next week, into the weekend. The same for Norwich, actually a bit of a dip as it cools off this week, but actually in the east temperatures may well start to rise because of that switch in wind direction, because we're seeing the weather systems coming in from the west. There's London's temperature, so yeah, peaking today, dipping a little bit, so we'll be out of the heat wave by Wednesday, but then steady as she goes, mid-20s into the weekend. Compare that with somewhere further west. So if we look at Belfast, for example, you can see actually it is going to get cooler and stay on that cooler side as we go through next week. We will see that temperature dropping off further west because we're switching the wind direction. So we're going from that easterly to a more westerly through next week. So western areas will feel the influence of the Atlantic more. That's the typical situation in the UK. So western areas are often a bit cooler, a bit cloudier than the east. We've seen the reverse in recent weeks, but now we're going back to what is more classic, with the temperatures dipping off a little bit. Still generally staying a little bit above average, and that is a strong signal for much of the rest of June, if not into July. Quite a lot of the computer models are signifying that temperatures will remain somewhat above average, close to or above average for the next couple of weeks. So that increased risk of showers from the west. Most of the rest of this week dry and sunny. Chance of showers coming in from the west into the weekend. Temperatures generally taking a little bit of a dip in the west, but dipping and then rising in the east. Another way of looking at that is, or which one shall we show? Let's show this one first of all, because this is the chance of reaching 25 degrees Celsius for next week. So this is when we look at the computer modelling ensemble, when we run the computer models many, many times. You can see that the chance of reaching 25 Celsius really dropping off. That's what we've seen in western areas, that criteria for hitting the heat wave, of course, in the west, whereas actually the zone that's going to reach 25 Celsius is more towards the southeast and East Anglia, where the threshold for a heat wave is that much higher. So you can see that that is transforming, that change. We're going to see that change And another way of looking at that is the temperatures are 4 degrees above average or not. And again, you can see that shift as we go through next week. The temperatures, the probabilities down the bottom here of reading 4 degrees above average at midday. And that's quite a high chance across Scotland and the east of England. And that risk reducing as you go further west, or the chance of getting those temperatures 4 degrees above average is reducing in the west, but staying quite high in the east. So that's that switch around that we can see. And another way of looking at it is with the chance of rainfall coming in. So this is the chance of seeing 5 millimetres of rainfall on any one day through the course of next week. And this is a much stronger signal in the west. Certainly initially, you can see that the risk of showers coming in from the west far greater for Northern Ireland, up to 60–80% chance for Wales, southwest England through Sunday and Monday. Whereas in the east, you've got those paler colours. The chance is next to zero across the far east during Sunday and Monday. It becomes a bit more wishy-washy, the signal, as we go towards the end of next week, but you've still got that kind of east-west split with a greater chance in the west through next week. And that's really all we can say, that these trends are what we're seeing in the forecast through next week. Of course, Aidan will have much more on that in the 10-day trend that we see tomorrow. Now, I did promise an early look at festival weather and Glastonbury. That kind of gives the game away there for what we know. Let's take another look at that. So we've seen the temperatures through next week. If Glastonbury was this week, it will be glorious, it will be fantastic, it will be sunny and temperatures above average. But this is suggesting there is an increased chance of seeing showers in the Glastonbury area as we go through next week. It starts on Wednesday, I think the music starts Thursday, Friday, but an increased chance, certainly compared to this week, of seeing the showers. But at this stage, that's all you can say. It's an increased chance. It doesn't mean necessarily. So for a site-specific forecast, something like Glastonbury, you really can't give details this far ahead, which is 9–10 days ahead. For site-specific, all you can do is give this kind of trend forecast. It looks like there's a greater chance of seeing some showers. It also looks like it's going to be above average temperatures, as we've already seen. Let's actually look at the maximum temperatures for that part of the world. Let's zoom in. Let's try and find Glastonbury in a little bit more detail. If we zoom in here, where are we? We're about here, aren't we? So somewhere in this area here is Glastonbury, and you can see that temperatures at the moment well above average. And if it was this week, 24–25 degrees Celsius would be, well, I don't know, probably about perfect for a festival. Quite warm, quite humid, maybe difficult for sleeping in the tents. But that sign of temperatures dropping off as we go into next week, closer to average. But as we've also seen, actually, there's still a pretty good chance that temperatures will be generally on the high side. Those models suggesting temperatures are going to be above average. And even in the southwest, although not a huge chance of it being 4 degrees above average, generally it looks like being warm as we go through next week. So what we can say about Glastonbury, it's probably going to be on the warm side, still quite humid, but compared to this week, there is a far greater chance of seeing some showers. And I should also mention the Isle of Wight Festival, because that's on this week also. And Isle of Wight is looking pretty good. If you're going to the Isle of Wight Festival, Thursday, Friday, plenty of sunshine here. But by the time we get to Saturday, there is just a hint. Some of the computer models are pushing some showers in towards the Isle of Wight. So if you're going to the Isle of Wight Festival, yes, generally looks fine and warm this weekend, but there is an increasing chance of showers and possibly thunderstorms as we go through the weekend. So that's something to be aware of if you're going to the Isle of Wight Festival. Right, that's kind of it, I think, for this week. Thank you for joining me. Thanks for being involved. Love to read your comments. So please do keep those coming in. Say share this with everyone. Share this with anyone you know is going to Glastonbury. Make sure you're following us, because we're going to be posting more. If you're going to festivals this week, this summer, we'll be posting plenty more across our channel. So we're on TikTok. There's lots more on there about things like Glastonbury. So make sure you're following us on there. Please hit subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, and give us the thumbs up if you like what you see. And please do keep those comments coming in. We do read them, and we will try and answer some of your questions and queries. Any suggestions, as always, are also very welcome. Lots more information about pollen and UV on our website as well. Okay, that's it from me. Thank you for watching. I'll see you again soon.